Today is the 21st of September 2019. It's a warm, in fact hot summer's afternoon, or late summer afternoon, or I should say autumn really, because this is the start of the autumn. 21st of September is the equinox, and here I am standing from my office and looking out onto the bonsai nursery, and the colors are absolutely amazing. In fact, the colors are so dramatic that I feel that I should walk around with my simple iPhone camera and take some pictures before the leaves start to fall. Autumn is one of those times of the year when things change really rapidly. One day the tree will be red, and if you get a strong wind, then all the leaves will have fallen. So I want to take this opportunity of walking around, taking some pictures to share with you before things change. I did a similar tour back in March when I was looking at the spring color of the March trees, and many of those trees were just beginning to bud, but here they are in all its glory. I wouldn't say it's full autumn glory, because the trees have still got a lot of color yet to come, but different trees are turning color at different times of the year. I have already shown you some pictures earlier on, but I thought I'd walk around now because the colors are quite spectacular. It's only 3 o'clock in the afternoon and the sun is really hot. In fact, the temperature today is 24 or 25 degrees in the sunshine, and here I am going through. I'll tell you what each of these trees are. That's a Japanese larch, an old one that we grew in the field, and that's a Deshojo maple, no leaf scorch on the leaves. Next to that is a large Korean hornbeam with a massive trunk, and this is at Zelkova group, Zelkova serrata, Japanese greybark elm group. Most of the time it gets sun on the left hand side, and it's red on one side and yellow on the other side. So the side that didn't get the sun, morning sun, turns color much later. This is a large cedar forest. That's mountain maple, another large Korean hornbeam, mountain maple that we make in our field, and that's our very large Arakawa or rough bark maple. And that maple has been turning color gradually for the last 2 weeks. It started off a very pink color and now it is reaching crimson, but in a week's time it will turn even more red. That's a trident maple. The trident maples tend to turn color much later. That's an ordinary mountain maple, quite a nice one. That's one of our ficuses basking in the sun. It's a customer's tree. As you know by now, we have a lot of customers who keep their trees here, either for trimming or repotting or just general care. This is our very large trident maple, our pride and joy. I'm just trying to find things of interest for you. Crab apples basking in the sun. The ginkgos haven't started turning color yet, but when they turn color, they turn a beautiful butter or golden yellow color. Those are the leaves of the Chinese quince. I love the color of that because it's always a very soft pink, very subtle colors. Chinese quince. These we have to import from Japan. Pardon me if I'm using just my iPhone and no microphone, but I think the iPhone, I'm not selling iPhones, I'm not their agent, but I think they do a marvelous job. Most of my blogs and videos have been done with the iPhone, and they are simply superb. And I'm going to show you a close-up of these pines, because the pines are beginning to have their autumn foliage. which means that they shed the old needles. The old second and third year old needles start to show, and this is what many people fear. They see all these yellowing of the needles and they think the tree is dying, but it is perfectly normal for the pines to do that. So when they turn this yellow, the tree is not dying. It's quite normal for it. I'm going to show you a separate video of how to clean the pines. But despite doing it year after year, people always get worried when they see the pines, especially Japanese white pine, shedding their needles. This is another one. Look at it. You would really think that the tree is about to die, but it's not dying. Those are English views. Those we make from trees that we grow in our own field, and they've all got 4 to 6 inch diameter trunks, and they're fairly cheap trees to buy. View of our large specimen trees. I'm just walking around taking casual shots of the nursery. Now that mountain maple, no, that's a Deishojo maple. That one has already shed more than half its leaves because it turned color about 2 weeks ago. So it just shows how varied the maples are. Some turn color earlier, some turn colors much later. This is my large, very, very large Japanese white pine. Look at this, my hand next to it. Trunk diameter is every bit 12 inches across. That's my large cedar forest. This was made only about 10 years ago from ordinary cedar trees. That's brevifolia, by the way. And it's much admired. I'll show you warts and all, and we're still weeding our trees. Weeding is a constant problem. If only this world was weed-free, life would be so much easier and simpler. That's my greenhouse, but I won't go in there. So this is our greenhouse where we sell our indoor bonsai. Just a quick glimpse. I showed another clip taken, I think 10 days ago, when I was talking about the Korean hornbeams, and many of them were still green. But the Korean hornbeam have changed color so rapidly. There's a couple of trees here. One is still green and the other is almost completely red. And the big tree that I showed about 10 days ago, it was pretty pink. It has more or less lost half its leaves. And this year the Korean hornbeams have produced lots and lots of seeds. So all these beautiful seeds we're going to collect, and we will sow the seeds, because Korean hornbeam is quite a rare tree and they do grow quite easily from seed. So we will collect the seed and sow it. So that's the Korean hornbeam. All those trees will be about to turn red. I have some Korean hornbeams growing in a shade tunnel, and I will move over to the shade tunnel now and I will show you the difference. They are all bright green. Now I'm here in the tunnel, and these are the Korean hornbeams that we're growing on. I've kept them in the shade tunnel because the sun has been so fierce. I don't want them scorched by the sun. So they continue to grow and they're all green, but they will turn color in time, but they turn color much later. And while I'm in this tunnel, I'll just show you some other things. This is the Ficus carica, or the edible fig. We sell quite a few of these. They actually produce figs, but this year I haven't let this tree grow figs because I wanted more ramification. And these are our cotoneasters. That's a mulberry tree, and that has already started shedding its leaves. The mulberries have a very pale yellow color, and they make lovely bonsai too. And this pine, look at the state of that. Autumn needles. These are olive trees. And they bear fruit every year. We also have orange trees. That's bonsai. Lots of large junipers, needle juniper, Chinese juniper. That's a large mulberry, needle junipers. Oh, while I'm here, I will show you the pomegranates. This is the dwarf variety called a nana. They have these pretty small flowers and they carry fruit afterwards. The large flowered ones have just finished flowering, so unfortunately we missed them, so I can't show you any of those flowers. We have some very large old needle junipers with massive trunks. And these are the ginkgos. The ginkgos, they are about to turn golden yellow, but the peak of the color is yet to come. We're still touring the nursery. This is one of our shade tunnels. The shade tunnel, we just keep green netting over it to provide some shade from the hot sun, and in winter the shade tunnel provides protection from the hard frost. These are the pyrocanthus as bonsai. The fruit and flowers have not been so good this year. I'd like to show you this tree. I've never featured it again. This was a tree that I copied from one of the Japanese imports. It was one of the many trident maples that we imported from Japan. So I copied what a lot of the growers did. So half the tree was laying on the side and the roots on this side were chopped off and the other roots were placed in the ground, and I just put the tree on its side and made a raft from it. So this has been created over the last 10, maybe 15 years. This is a very nice specimen of Shishigashira. I used to have lots of beautiful Shishigashiras that I imported from Japan. This is still one of them. Trident maples have suffered a bit this year because of the hot sun. Many of the leaves got burnt early in the season. That's the large Chinese juniper that was hired out for the Chelsea Flower Show, and that tree is there in all its glory, basking in the sun. And this is a tree that I've had for more than 20 years. I love this tree. I refuse to sell it, but I will sell it one day. And these are the pines that I worked on, the two tall literati pines. And the growth has certainly densed up, not so straggly as it once was. This is a view of the tree. Just to show you the general view of the garden in case you have never visited. These are our ginkgo seedlings. Although they are seedlings, they're quite thick. And many people buy these to make bonsai. That's an English beech, native field maple, Acer campestre. This is a large San Jose juniper. This is a very large Morus nigra. That means it's a large mulberry. The trunk is every bit 10 to 12 inches in diameter at the base. Excuse the aircraft noise. I know a lot of people complain about it, but I've learned to live with it, so I'm not too worried about it. But we are close to Gatwick, and I do fly quite a bit from Gatwick, so you have to be philosophical about these things. These are Hinoki cypress that we sell as starter trees. They're a lovely plant to work with. Wisteria bonsai. This is an ordinary native beech, Fagus sylvatica, and we make lots of these. We grow them in the field and then pot them up. That's a twin trunk tree of beech, and these are mugo pines. We have hundreds of them. They're very popular for our classes and workshops. So the mugo is #1 popular tree. This is an ordinary twin trunk mountain maple. So it's just starting to turn. It's starting to turn a sort of yellowish bronze color. But next to it, this one is a Deshojo. This is a twin, no, not a twin trunk tree. It's just got a low branch at the side. But it has virtually lost 70 to 80% of the leaves. So the Deshojos have shed their leaves very, very early this year. This is another Deshojo, so almost all the leaves have fallen. Those are our big pyracantha which have rooted in the ground. I'm going to trim them later on. And this is a splendid example of ordinary native beech. So autumn is really a lovely time of the year. I'll just walk on a little more to show you some of the views. This is a view of our long corridor where we sell our cheaper trees, mainly native trees. All these acers are produced by ourselves. We have fields and fields of acers, and we are self-sufficient in acers. Walking back to one of these benches, large Chinese elm. This is a large English oak, landscape style, and this is a raft of needle juniper rigida, and these are the lovely berries that you get on it. Look at it, they're beautiful, deep purple, and they sow and germinate very easily. So there are hundreds of berries, and each berry has about maybe 10 seeds in it. So I'll be collecting these seeds and sowing them to produce new plants. Far easier to sow from seed than making cuttings, because the cuttings are very prickly and very spiteful. just going to walk on to another area. While I'm passing this way, I thought I'd show you some very famous trees of mine. That cascading larch is a larch that I collected in 1974, and it has appeared in virtually all my books as a windswept tree. But over the years I've made it into a cascade or semi-cascade, and there it is, made 45 years ago, collected 45 years ago, and now it is still alive. This is the field maple. If you remember, I used the car pressure washer to make that tree, and very healthy. I'm waiting for more ramification. This is another very famous pine. This is the pine that was featured on the cover of Bonsai Masterclass. I will talk about it on another occasion, but this tree has changed beyond all recognition. This tree is a Japanese beech, white beech, Fagus crenata. And these are typical of the semi-trained Chinese junipers that we imported from Japan many years ago. This San Jose juniper, this old fellow here, was made by me with John Narker in 1976 on John Narker's first visit to the UK, and I did a workshop with him. It is featured in my first book, Bonsai: The Art of Growing and Keeping Miniature Trees, but it's such an old tree. It's all adult foliage now, although it's a San Jose, and I will revamp this tree. It's seen better days, but it has to be restyled. So that's another job for another YouTube video. I'm just now going to walk around the back and show you some of the other maples that are turning color. While I'm walking past here, you will see more trees, crab apples that we are growing on. The fruit this year has not been very good, because most fruiting trees, even the trees in our orchard, they fruit well every other year. They rest one year, and then the next year the fruit will be better. So they have a rest, and then the following year they become better. So let's take a quick walk through the nursery. This is our greenhouse at the back, where we restyle and remake many of our trees. This is a large air layering that I did. This air layering, you won't believe it, was about 20 feet tall, but I had to cut about 6 or 8 feet of it off to fit this greenhouse. But there it is. That was an air layering only a week ago, and it has stood in its sphagnum moss, waiting to root. I know it will root because it survived for the last 10 days and all the leaves are still green and beautiful. Now we will walk into the back area, where I will show you our trees. These are our maples that we grow in pots to either sell as Japanese garden trees or to make into bonsai. So we literally have thousands and thousands of maples. We specialize in maples, so you will see no end of maples here. So many rare varieties. This is Kotonoito, one of the very many dissectums. There are so many varieties of dissectums, I cannot remember all their names. Just row upon row upon row. I hope me walking around with this camera won't make you giddy, but at least it gives you some idea of the variety that we have in maples in all shapes and sizes. This is a Shishigashira. These are all in different stages of being made into bonsai. And my love for trees is still evident, I hope, because every time I walk around I can't help but admire what I see. And I've just discovered a beautiful crab apple. Look at the size of the fruit on that one. They're like large plums, but they're crab apples. I can't even remember planting that. That's next to a Kotonuito, the harp string maple. And there we go. This is a Japanese beech, Fagus crenata, and these are the seeds that we get from the tree. And we prize these seeds very highly because the Japanese white beech is quite a rare tree and they can only be produced from seed. You can air layer it, but we collect the seeds because they germinate quite easily. So before the squirrels steal the seeds, we will have to go around collecting the seeds. And another aspect of the nursery that worries us is these molehills. You may not know what a molehill is, but these are lumps and hills of soil that the moles dig up and they spoil the look of the lawn. But we don't kill our moles, we just let them live. These large maples here were grown when we made this garden in 1991. So these trees are about 29 or 30 years from planting, but I think the trees would be about 45 years old and they would be every bit 20 to 25 feet high. And while I'm here, I would show you this great big sequoia tree which was also planted in 91. So the tree is no more than 40 years old. It was about 1 inch thick when I planted it, but the present diameter is about, I would say, 8 foot in diameter. But like most of other evergreen conifers, at this time of the year, the old needles do turn brown and shed. So this tree is not dying when you see the yellowing of the foliage. This is perfectly natural. Just like the Japanese white pine that I showed you earlier, these trees also shed their second and third year old needles. That's a picture of my weeping willow that I planted only about 15 years ago, and that tree would be every bit 80 feet tall. They are not long-lived trees. After about 25 or 30 years, they become so heavy and fragile that they do snap and break in the wind. So that tree will probably shed a lot of its branches during a storm. If you can catch sight of it, that is the Japanese white beech. And this is a large field maple. I've been meaning to work on that for the past year, but I never found the time. I kept it aside for a YouTube video, but I will get round to it. So there are more air layerings everywhere. This is a large leaf magnolia, and the flowers are single petal white flowers. They're not highly scented, but the leaves are absolutely enormous, almost the size of tobacco leaves. See the size of my hand compared to that. The leaves would be about 18 inches long, 50 to 60 centimeter in length, some of them, but they have the most beautiful seed pods. These seed pods last right through the autumn, and then the seeds burst open and you can sow the seeds. So we grow it only for the seed pods. While I'm here, this is a cercidifilum, and in the autumn before the leaves fall, they exude this chocolatey smell. So if you walk near the tree and you smell chocolate, this is the smell you get from these leaves before they shed. Cercidifilum japonicum, I think, is the proper name. This is the lily pond, our pride and joy. And the lilies, in case you didn't know, they only bloom when the sun comes out. On a cloudy day, the flowers will not open. But when the sun is out, the flowers will emerge. Again, at this time of the year, the flowers are almost finished, so there are not many flowers left. And one final look into our growing fields and orchard. I like to take pictures of this maple grove because I've got about 5 or 6 different varieties of maple here. There is Seiryu, which is that one turning, just about to turn red. This one is the rough bark maple, Arakawa. And they are all loaded with seeds. So I'm going to be collecting the seeds in October, November. And we grow our plants from seed. It's quite a magical grove. I'm glad I planted it. There's something spooky about it. I want to show you a very large Arakawa. This clump style maple was planted as a bonsai in 1991 when I made this garden, and it must be every bit 18 inches to 2 foot at the base. And look at the rough bark. Look at the rough bark on it. Absolutely stunning tree. And I will take pictures when the tree turns red because this is a really beautiful tree. I will now move on to our growing fields. We have a large orchard with about 200 trees, but last year we had to uproot about 70 of these trees because they were getting very old. Many of these trees were planted back in 1911, I believe, before the First World War. So these trees are over 100 years old. You may not believe it, but this is so. It's so old that many of these trees are completely hollow. The variety is called Royal Jubilee, I think in honor of Queen Victoria. Royal Jubilee. It's a large apple, but it's not very sweet, but not very sharp either. So it's classed as both a cooker come dessert apple. And I have so many fruit that we don't sell it, and everyone has apple trees, so they just go to waste, but not really go to waste because I let the birds eat them. So the birds enjoy the fruit. So we are completely nature friendly, complete cycle. The birds enjoy the fruit. We have herons that eat the fish, and so the cycle goes on. I did plant some of my own favorite trees. These are called russets, for those of you who are not in England. They may not know this variety, but the russets are a brown colored apple, and they have the texture, I think, of a pear tree. Pear fruit, I mean. So it's a lovely variety which we eat. And this is the very famous English apple called Cox's Orange Pippin. So I planted a few of those. I'm just going to take you for a final walk into our maple growing area. As some of you may have gathered, we sow most of our maples from seed and we grow them from air layerings. So we have literally hundreds, if not thousands, of maples growing. And here they are. It's like a maple jungle, but we do dig them up and plant them in the ground, otherwise we lose control of the tree. I will show you one area where we grow maples, just to give you some idea as to how quickly they thicken when grown in the ground. And of course, not only do they thicken, but they thicken at differing rates. These trees, you may not believe it, are only, I would say, 8 years old. We planted these about 2 years ago, and if I show my hand next to it, that trunk is at least inch to 2 inch in diameter, and I'll cut it down there to make bonsai. So they were only planted 2 years back, most of them 2 years back. But I have some other trees which we planted about maybe 10 years ago, and they were so close to my wire fence that I never got a chance to take them out. And look at the trunks there. They are every bit 4 inches in diameter at the base. But if I just pan across, some of them are only half an inch thick, and yet they're all the same age. So growing in the ground sometimes produces these results. I suppose the stronger trees have dominated the weaker ones, and the stronger ones have become thicker. So all those, like those trees, they're all the same age, but one is about 3 inches thick, the other one is only 3/4 inch thick. So these will be lifted up in the winter of the coming year. So the work never stops. This is a pretty long video, but I hope you enjoy it because it gives you some feel as to how large our nursery is and what we actually do on the nursery. We actually grow trees. So show you some more. These are our large Bouverensis. We also have cedar trees, large trees. These trees are destined to become garden trees because we sell large garden trees for landscaping. In fact, we make more money selling landscaping trees than bonsai. And they're all produced from scratch. More maples, some old ones, some young ones. These are all seedlings in different stages of development. Seedlings by the 100, if not 1,000. And our crab apples, we do grow quite a few from seed, but this is a crab apple that we've just let grow to become a bigger tree. So look at the beautiful fruit. Look at the beautiful fruit. The whole tree is just covered in fruit. That's a large trident maple. This is how we grow our trident maples, in the ground, and then we pot them up. So this one is due for shaping come this spring. So to end on a very colorful and autumnal note, here we are back to a Cotoneaster growing wild. This is where we harvest our seeds, we sow the seeds for young plants, and the think stubs we will dig up to make into bonsai. So I hope you've enjoyed this little tour. It's a rather long video, but enjoy it.